Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands as he crawled out from under the navigation console. The New Hope was humanity's newest diplomatic ship, but it still needed constant repairs. Jake had been fixing things since he was 12 years old back on Earth. Now, at 28, he could make any machine run better than when it was new. "Morrison, get to Docking Bay 3 right now," Captain Lisa Brooks' voice crackled through his COM device. "We have an emergency." Jake grabbed his toolkit and ran through the ship's corridors. The New Hope was visiting the Centauri system for peace talks with the Zilani Empire. The Zilani were one of the most powerful alien races in the galaxy. Their ships were massive and beautiful, but Jake had heard their technology was very different from human machines. When he reached the docking bay, he saw smoke pouring from a small alien shuttle. The ship was gold and silver, with strange curves that hurt his eyes to look at. Several Zilani aliens stood nearby, their tall forms shaking with worry. Their skin looked like flowing mercury, and they spoke in musical tones that his translator barely understood. "The king is trapped inside," Captain Brooks told Jake quickly. "Their life support system is failing. Our people can't figure out their technology fast enough." Jake looked at the smoking shuttle. He had never worked on alien tech before, but a failing life support system was still a failing life support system. "I'll do what I can, Captain." He ran to the shuttle's side panel. The Zilani writing looked like dancing lights, but the underlying system made sense to his engineer's eye. Every machine had basic rules, whether human or alien. Power flowed from here to there. Life support needed air, pressure, and temperature control. The metal was burning hot, but Jake ignored the pain in his hands. Inside the shuttle, he could see a large Zilani figure slumped over controls. The alien's silver skin was turning dark gray, which probably meant bad things for his health. Jake found what looked like the main power coupling. It was melted and sparking. Without thinking, he reached into his toolkit and pulled out a human power relay. It was the wrong size and wrong shape, but engineering was about making things work, not making them pretty. He jammed the human part into the alien system and rerouted power through his toolkit's battery pack. It was dangerous and stupid, but the shuttle's lights flickered back on. Air started flowing again. "Got it!" Jake yelled, then squeezed through the shuttle's narrow door. The alien inside was huge, maybe 8 feet tall, with skin that shifted between silver and gold. Jewels covered his head and neck. This had to be the king. Jake checked the readings on the life support panel. The numbers were in alien script, but green usually meant good and red usually meant bad in any language. "Your Majesty?" Jake said. Not sure if he was using the right title. "Can you hear me?" The king's large violet eyes opened slowly. When he spoke, his voice was like a song, but the translator made it sound normal. "You ... you are human." "Yes, sir, Jake Morrison." "I'm an engineer." The king tried to sit up but fell back down. "I am King Vorthak of the Zilani Empire. You have ... saved my life." "Just doing my job, Your Majesty." King Vorthak stared at Jake with those strange violet eyes. "No, young human. You have done much more. Our races barely know each other, yet you risked yourself for me. This creates a blood debt." Jake had no idea what that meant, but it sounded serious. "You don't owe me anything, sir?" "Really, the debt must be paid," the king said firmly. He pressed a jeweled device on his wrist, and it glowed with soft light. "By the ancient laws of my people, I give you my greatest treasure and my greatest burden." "Sir, I really don't need any treasure," King Vorthak smiled sadly. "I give you my daughter, Princess Kira. She is yours now." Jake's mouth fell open. "I'm sorry, what?" But the king's eyes were closing again. Medical teams from both ships arrived and carefully moved him to the New Hope's medical bay. Jake stood in the smoking shuttle, holding alien tools and wondering what had just happened. 2 hours later, Jake found himself in the ship's main conference room. The space was packed with humans and aliens. Representatives from the Galactic Council had arrived quickly when they heard about the king's accident. They looked like different types of creatures from a dozen worlds, some tall, some short, some with scales, some with fur. King Vorthak lay on a medical bed, looking much better but still weak. A young Zelani female stood beside him. She was tall like all her people, but moved with deadly grace. Her skin was the purest silver Jake had ever seen, and her violet eyes seemed to look right through him. This had to be Princess Kira. The blood debt is confirmed, King Vorthik announced to the room. Jake Morrison of Earth has saved my life. According to our laws, I passed my daughter Princess Kira into his care. The room exploded with noise. The Galactic Council members started laughing and talking all at once. Jake caught pieces of conversation through his translator. The cursed. Princes with a human? He'll be dead in a week. This is the funniest thing I've seen in decades. A tall, blue-skinned council member stood up. Your Majesty, surely you don't mean to burden this primitive human with Princess Kira's condition. Princess Kira's silver skin darkened with anger, but she said nothing. The law is clear, King Vorthik replied. The debt is owed. Jake Morrison accepts this responsibility. Everyone turned to look at Jake. He felt like a mouse surrounded by cats. What exactly am I accepting? More laughter from the council. A reptilian alien with green scales spoke up. Princess Kira is known throughout the galaxy, human. She has psychic powers that she cannot control. She has driven away 47 suitors. 3 of them went insane. 1 died. She is cursed, added another council member. No one wants her. Jake looked at Princess Kira. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were clenched into fists. She was angry and hurt even if she hid it well. Jake knew what it felt like too. Be the person nobody wanted around. I accept, Jake said quietly. The laughter stopped. Princess Kira's violet eyes met his for the first time. You cannot be serious, the blue-skinned council member said. He is, King Vorthok smiled weakly. The blood debt is satisfied. Princess Kira, meet your new guardian. Princess Kira stepped forward and looked down at Jake. When she spoke, her voice was cold and musical. Hello, Jake Morrison. I am sorry for the burden you have just accepted. I will try not to kill you too quickly. The Galactic Council started laughing again. They thought this was the best joke they had heard in years. A primitive human taking care of the galaxy's most dangerous princess? It would be entertainment for months. Jake looked up at Princess Kira and smiled. Nice to meet you too, Your Highness. We'll figure this out together. For just a moment, Princess Kira's cold expression cracked, and something that might have been hope flickered in her violet eyes. Image description for Leonardo AI. A maintenance engineer in practical blue coveralls. Stands in a futuristic docking bay facing a tall, elegant alien princess with flowing silver skin and violet eyes. Behind them, a damaged golden alien shuttle smokes while diverse alien council members laugh in the background. The scene shows the contrast between the humble human engineer and the regal but unwanted princess, with starship corridors and alien technology visible. The lighting is dramatic with blue and silver tones, emphasizing the sci-fi setting and the moment of their fateful meeting. Princess Kira had been aboard the New Hope for 3 days, and Jake was starting to understand why people called her cursed. Every time she got upset or angry, strange things happened. Light bulbs exploded. Computer screens flickered with images. That made no sense. The coffee maker in the crew lounge started brewing thick purple liquid that smelled like flowers and metal. The worst part was the dreams. Half the crew reported having vivid nightmares about drowning in silver liquid or being chased by creatures made of starlight. The ship's doctor, Amy Chun, said the dreams all started after Princess Kira came aboard. Jake found Captain Brooks in her office, staring at a pile of incident reports. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, which was probably true. Morrison. We need to talk, the captain said without looking up. This princess of yours is causing serious problems. She's not doing it on purpose, Captain, Jake replied. She can't control her abilities. That's exactly the problem. Captain Brooks finally looked at him. Dark circles ringed her eyes. Last night, her nightmares somehow got into the ship's computer system. The navigation computer spent 2 hours trying to plot a course to a planet that doesn't exist. If we had been in hyperspace, we could have been lost forever. Jake sat down across from her desk. What do you want me to do? Transfer her off the ship. There's a Galactic Council transport coming through this system tomorrow. They can take her to a proper facility. A facility? Jake's voice got louder. She's not broken equipment, Captain. She's a person. A person who could kill us all by? Accident, Captain Brooks shot back. I have a crew to protect, Morrison. This blood debt thing doesn't mean you have to get everyone killed. Jake thought about Princess Kira. She spent most of her time alone in the guest quarters he had fixed. Up for her. She barely spoke to anyone and rarely left her room. When she did, people stared at her with fear and whispered behind her back. Jake had tried to talk to her several times, but she always gave short, cold answers. Give me 1 week, Captain. Jake said, let me try something. Captain Brooks rubbed her tired eyes. 1 week, Morrison. But if things get worse, she goes, I won't risk my ship and crew for your alien princess. Jake left the captain's office and went straight to Princess Kira's quarters. He knocked on the door and waited. After a long moment, it slid open. Princess Kira stood in the doorway wearing a simple gray outfit that the ship's replicator had made for her. Her silver skin looked dull and her violet eyes held no expression. What do you want, Jake Morrison? I want to show you something, Jake said. Will you come with me? She stared at him for a moment, then stepped out of her room. Where are we going? Storage Bay 7? I've been working on a project. They walked through the ship's corridors in silence. Crew members they passed gave Princess Kira nervous looks and moved out of her way. Jake noticed how she kept her head down and her hands clasped tightly together. Storage Bay 7 had been empty when Jake started his project 2 days ago. Now it looked completely different. He had moved in several work tables, tool kits, spare parts, and boxes of mechanical components. Half-finished devices sat on every surface, some human, some alien parts he had traded for at the last station. This is a workshop, Princess Kira said, looking around with the first real interest Jake had seen from her. Your workshop, if you want it, Jake said. I thought maybe you'd like to learn how things work. Princess Kira picked up a small device from the nearest table. It was a puzzle box Jake had made from spare computer parts. Why would I want to do this? Because you're bored out of your mind sitting in that room all day, Jake said honestly. And because I think your psychic abilities work like any other system. They need understanding, not fear. She set the puzzle box down carefully. 47 suitors tried to help me control my abilities. Priests, warriors, scientists, and scholars from the most advanced races in the galaxy. All of them failed. Yeah, but none of them were engineers, Jake said with a smile. Engineers don't try to control systems. We try to understand them first. Princess Kira was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up the puzzle box again. How does this work? Jake pulled up a chair next to her. Start with the basics. Feel the weight, check the connections, look for patterns. For the next 2 hours, Jake taught Princess Kira how to take apart and rebuild simple devices. She was incredibly fast at learning. Her long, elegant fingers were perfect for delicate work, and she seemed to understand how parts fit together. Almost by instinct, more importantly, while she worked, nothing strange happened. No lights exploded, no computers went crazy. Her psychic abilities seemed to quiet down when her mind was focused on solving problems. This is peaceful, Princess Kira said as she successfully opened the puzzle box for the 3rd time. I have never felt my mind so still. Mental focus is like any other skill, Jake explained. It takes practice. Over the next few days, Princess Kira spent most of her time in the workshop. Jake taught her basic engineering principles while she worked on increasingly complex projects. She learned to use human tools and understand how different systems connected together. The strange incidents around the ship started to decrease. Crew members stopped having nightmares. The coffee maker went back to making normal coffee. Computer systems worked properly, but the biggest change was in Princess Kira herself. She started talking more, asking questions about how things worked and why humans built machines the way they did. She even smiled occasionally when she solved a particularly difficult puzzle. Your people are very different from mine, she told Jake one evening as they worked on rebuilding a damaged communication array. Zilani are taught that power must be controlled through discipline and force. But you teach me to understand instead of control. Control is just understanding plus practice, Jake said, handing her a microcircuit. When you understand how something works, controlling it becomes natural. Princess Kira installed the circuit with careful precision. Is that why you are not afraid of me? Jake looked at her, surprised by the question. Should I be afraid of you? Everyone else is. Even my own people. You haven't given me any reason to be afraid, Jake said simply. You're just someone who needs help figuring things out. We all need help sometimes. Princess Kira's silver skin brightened slightly, which Jake had learned meant she was pleased or happy. Thank you, Jake Morrison. No one has ever said that to me before. Meanwhile, reports of Princess Kira's progress reached the Galactic Council. The same aliens who had laughed at Jake's acceptance of the blood debt now watched with growing curiosity. Some placed bets on how long this period of calm would last. Others wondered if the human actually knew what he was doing. It's probably just a temporary improvement, declared Council Member Vex, the blue-skinned alien who had mocked Jake before. Humans are known for their primitive optimism. When her true nature reasserts itself, this Morrison will learn why. 47 suitors failed. But on the New Hope, Princess Kira was carefully assembling her most complex project, a small device that could translate between human and Zilani technology interfaces. Her psychic abilities flowed smoothly and calmly as she worked. Guided by understanding instead of suppressed by fear, for the first time in her life, Princess Kira felt like she belonged somewhere. Image description for Leonardo AI. A spaceship. Workshop filled with tools, mechanical parts, and half-assembled devices on metal work tables. A tall alien princess with flowing silver skin and violet eyes sits beside a human engineer in blue coveralls, both working together on intricate electronic components. Soft blue lighting illuminates their focused faces as they collaborate on a complex mechanical puzzle. The background shows storage containers and spare parts scattered around the room, with the peaceful atmosphere contrasting the princess's previous reputation for causing chaos. The alarm klaxon woke Jake from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in his quarters as Captain Brooks' voice echoed through the ship's communication system. All hands to battle stations. We have received a distress call from the mining colony on Kepler 442. B. Unknown hostile forces are attacking civilian targets. This is not a drill. Jake rolled out of bed and pulled on his uniform. The New Hope had been traveling through quiet space for 2 weeks since leaving the Centauri system. Princess Kira had made amazing progress in the workshop, and the crew had started to relax around her. Now they were heading into danger. He found Princess Kira in the corridor outside her quarters. She wore the tactical gear that the ship's fabricator had made for her, dark blue material that moved like liquid but could stop energy blasts. Her silver skin looked brighter than usual, and her violet eyes held a sharp focus Jake had never seen before. I can feel them, she said without greeting. The attackers. They are ... hungry. Hungry for what? Jake asked as they walked toward the bridge. Psychic energy, fear, pain. Princess Kira's voice was tight with concentration. They feed on the minds of others. On the bridge, Captain Brooks was studying tactical displays with Commander Amy Parker, the ship's military officer. Commander Parker was a tough woman in her 40s, who had fought in 3 different conflicts before joining the diplomatic corps. What's the situation, Captain? Jake asked. Mining colony with about 2,000 people, Captain Brooks replied. They sent a distress call 6 hours ago, then went silent. Long-range scans show multiple small ships attacking the colony's main settlement. Commander Parker pointed to the tactical screen. The attackers are a Vrak, nasty species that feeds on psychic energy. They attack worlds with large populations, drain everyone they can find, then move on. How do we fight them? Jake asked. Very carefully, Commander Parker said grimly. Vrak can attack your mind directly. Most species use heavy armor and long-range weapons to avoid getting close to them. Princess Kira stepped forward. I request permission to join the landing party. Commander Parker and Captain Brooks exchanged glances. Your Highness, that's not advisable, the captain said. The Vrak specifically target psychic individuals. You would be in extreme danger. The colonists are dying while we discuss this, Princess Kara replied calmly. I am the only person on this ship who can fight the Vrak on equal terms. Jake looked at her. In the past 2 weeks, he had watched her grow from a bitter, isolated princess into someone confident and focused. But fighting mind-feeding aliens was completely different from building electronic devices. If she goes, I go with her, Jake said. Commander Parker shook her head. Morrison, you're not military personnel. This is a combat situation. Princess Kira and I work well together, Jake insisted. She's right about being able to fight the Vrak, but she needs tactical support. Captain Brooks studied them both for a long moment. Very well. But you follow Commander Parker's orders without question. Is that understood? Yes, Captain, Jake and Princess Kira said together. 2 hours later, Jake found himself on a transport shuttle diving toward the surface of Kepler 442. The mining colony was built into the side of a mountain, with metal structures and platforms connected by bridges and tunnels. Smoke rose from several burning buildings. Commander Parker led a team of 12 Marines, all wearing heavy combat armor and carrying plasma rifles. Jake wore lighter gear and carried a scanner and engineering tools. Princess Kira had refused. Any weapons, saying her abilities were enough. Remember, the Vrak attacked the mine first, Commander Parker said as their shuttle approached the landing zone. If you start hearing voices or seeing things that aren't there, call for help immediately. They landed near the colony's main entrance. The place looked deserted, but Jake's scanner showed life signs scattered throughout the complex. As they moved deeper into the settlement, they found the first bodies. The colonists looked like they had simply fallen asleep, but their faces were twisted in expressions of terror. There were no physical wounds. Psychic drain, Princess Kira said quietly. The Vrak fed on their fear until there was nothing left. A scream echoed from somewhere ahead of them. Commander Parker motioned for the team to move forward carefully. They found a group of about 30 colonists barricaded in the main cafeteria. 3 creatures unlike anything Jake had ever seen were trying to break through the doors. The Vrak looked like shadows given form. They had roughly humanoid shapes but seemed to be made of dark smoke and starlight. When they moved, reality seemed to bend around them. Just looking at them made Jake's head hurt. Open fire, Commander Parker shouted. The Marines' plasma rifles lit up the corridor with bright energy blasts. The weapons hit the Vrak but seemed to pass right through them. The creatures turned toward the Marines, and several soldiers immediately dropped their weapons and started screaming. Physical weapons won't work, Princess Kira said. I need to get closer. No way, Jake said. There has to be another approach. He pulled out his scanner and started analyzing the Vrak. The readings were strange, but they showed patterns that reminded him of the electronics in Princess Kira's workshop projects. They're not solid, Jake realized. They exist partly in normal space and partly in psychic space. That's why bullets go through them. So how do we fight them? Commander Parker asked. Half her team was down, clutching their heads and sobbing. Jake looked at Princess Kira. Remember the interface translator you built last week? You bridged 2 different types of systems by finding the connection points. Princess Kira's violet eyes widened with understanding. I can target the connection between their physical and psychic forms. Exactly, but you need to be precise. Like threading a needle while riding a roller coaster. Princess Kira closed her eyes and extended her hands toward the nearest Vrak. Jake pulled out his scanner and began calling out readings like he was guiding her through a complex repair. Psychic energy signature is at 47.3. Jake said, physical anchor point is fluctuating between 12 and 15 meters. Wait for the pattern. Now, Princess Kira's abilities lashed out like a silver spear of light. The Vrak let out a sound like breaking glass and collapsed into nothing. The Marines who had been affected by its psychic attack immediately stopped screaming and picked up their weapons. Again, Jake said, scanning the second creature. This one's pattern is different. Energy signature at 62.1. Anchor point is more stable. Mark! The second Vrak fell. The third creature tried to flee, but Princess Kira and Jake had found their rhythm. Working together, they tracked its movement patterns and eliminated it before it could escape. Commander. Parker stared at them in amazement. How did you do that? Teamwork, Jake said simply. They spent the next 4 hours clearing the colony of Vrak. Jake provided tactical analysis and precise targeting information while Princess Kira delivered focused psychic attacks that could actually harm the creatures. By the time they finished, they had saved over 1,500 colonists and eliminated 12 Vrak without losing a single Marine. Word of their success spread quickly through the colony's communication systems. The miners talked about the human engineer and the Silver Princess who fought like a perfectly coordinated team. Within days, the story reached other star systems. On the Galactic Council homeworld, the laughter had stopped completely. Council member Vex read the battle reports with growing concern. This is impossible, he muttered to his aide. A human with no psychic abilities guiding a Zelani princess to victory against the Vrak? It should not work. But it had worked. For the first time in galactic history, someone had developed an effective tactic against the mind-feeding Vrak, and it had been accomplished by the same human and princes that the council had mocked just weeks earlier, back on the New Hope. Jake and Princess Kira sat in their workshop, quietly working on their next project. Neither of them realized that they had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy.image description for Leonardo AI. A battle scene inside a futuristic mining colony corridor with metal walls and industrial lighting. A human engineer in tactical gear holds a glowing scanner while a tall alien princess with silver skin extends her hands, shooting beams of psychic energy at shadowy creatures made of dark smoke and starlight. Armed Marines in heavy armor watch in amazement as the human-alien team coordinates their attack against the otherworldly Vrak creatures. Sparks and energy discharges illuminate the scene with blue and silver light. The message from the Zelani Empire arrived 3 weeks after the incident at Kepler 442b. Captain Brooks called Jake and Princess Kira to her office as soon as the official communication came through the diplomatic channels. They want her back, Captain Brooks said without any greeting. She looked tired and worried. High Counselor Nexus is demanding that Princess Kira return to the Zelani homeworld for what they call a purification trial. Princess Kira stood perfectly still, but Jake could see her hands trembling slightly. What kind of trial? She asked. Captain Brooks read from the official message displayed on her screen. They claim that your recent actions prove you have been corrupted by primitive human influence. They say your psychic abilities have been contaminated and must be cleansed before you can be reassigned to a proper Zelani noble house. Reassigned? Jake said angrily. She's not property. According to Zelani law, she is, Captain Brooks replied sadly. The blood debt that gave you guardianship only applies if she remains pure according to their cultural standards. If they rule that she has been corrupted, the debt becomes void. Princess Kira sat down heavily in the chair across from the captain's desk. Her silver skin had turned a dull gray color. High Counselor Nexus has wanted to control me since I was a child. This trial is his way of finally getting what he wants. We don't have to go, Jake said. You're under human protection now. If I refuse the trial, it will cause a diplomatic crisis between humans and the Zelani Empire, Princess Kira explained. Your people cannot afford to make enemies of one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Not for me, Captain Brooks nodded reluctantly. The diplomatic corps agrees. We have to honor their request. Jake felt anger burning in his chest. After everything Princess Kira had accomplished, after all her progress, they were going to drag her back to people who saw her as a burden and a tool. What happens at this trial? Traditional psychic combat, Princess Kira said quietly. I must face their chosen champion in mental battle. If I lose, I will be declared corrupted and given to the champion as his subordinate mate. If I win... She paused and looked at Jake. If I win, I am free to choose my own path. Who's their champion? Jake asked. Princess Kira's skin turned even grayer. General Thane. He is the strongest psychic warrior in the Zelani military. He has never been defeated. 3 days later, the New Hope arrived at Zelthara, the Zilani homeworld. The planet was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Silver cities stretched across continents like flowing metal, and the sky shimmered with colors that had no names in human language. The trial was held in the grand chamber of the Zilani High Council. The room was massive, with walls that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Hundreds of Zilani nobles sat in floating chairs around the chamber's edges. Representatives from the Galactic Council occupied a special viewing section, treating the event like entertainment. Jake stood in the designated area for Princess Kira's support team. Zilani law allowed her one advisor, even though that advisor could not directly participate in the psychic combat. Most of the nobles seemed amused that she had chosen a human with no psychic abilities. High Counselor Nexus was a tall, imposing Zilani with skin like flowing gold and eyes that burned with cold fire. He spoke in the musical language of his people, but translation devices carried his words to everyone in the chamber. Princess Kira stands accused of allowing her sacred abilities to be contaminated by primitive alien influence, he announced. She has forgotten the proper way of our people and embraced the chaotic methods of lesser species. General Thane entered the chamber like a walking storm. He was even larger than most Zilani, with skin that shifted between silver and black like metal in a forge. His psychic presence was so strong that the air around him seemed to bend and twist. "I will cleanse the corruption from her mind," General Thane declared, "and then she will learn her proper place as my mate and servant." Princess Kira stepped into the center of the chamber. She wore simple white robes that contrasted sharply with her silver skin. When she looked at Jake, he saw no fear in her violet eyes, only determination. "I am ready," she said. The psychic battle began immediately. General Thane attacked like a hurricane, sending waves of mental force that should have crushed Princess Kira instantly. The Watchers expected to see her fall within seconds, just like every other opponent Thane had ever faced, but Princess Kira did not fall. Instead, she moved like flowing water, redirecting Thane's attacks instead of trying to block them directly. Jake recognized the technique from their workshop sessions. She was treating the psychic combat like an engineering problem, finding the most efficient solution instead of using brute force. "Energy pattern is spiking at 83.7. Jake called out quietly, reading the scanner he had been allowed to bring. "His primary attack vector is shifting to mental pathway 7. Princess Kira adjusted her defense smoothly, guided by Jake's analysis. General Thane's attack missed its target and struck empty air. The general looked confused. His overwhelming assault should have ended the fight already. "Counter-attack opportunity in 15 seconds, Jake advised, watching the energy patterns. "He's overextended on pathways 3 through 9. When Jake gave the signal, Princess Kira struck back. Her psychic abilities flowed like liquid lightning, precise and controlled. Instead of trying to overpower General Thane, she targeted the specific weak points in his mental defenses that Jake had identified. General Thane staggered backward, his confident expression replaced by shock. No one had ever analyzed his fighting style so quickly or found his weaknesses so precisely. "Impossible," High Counselor Nexus whispered. The battle continued for another 10 minutes, but the outcome was never in doubt. Jake's tactical analysis and Princess Kira's focused abilities worked together perfectly. Every time General Thane tried a new attack, Jake identified the pattern and Princess Kira countered it flawlessly. Finally, Princess Kira delivered a precise psychic strike that shattered General Thane's remaining defenses. The powerful warrior collapsed to his knees, his mind overwhelmed by an opponent he could not understand or defeat. The Grand Chamber fell completely silent. General Thane had never lost a battle. Many Zilani had believed he was unbeatable. Yet a princess they considered cursed and unwanted had defeated him decisively, with perfect control of abilities they thought were chaotic and corrupted. "The trial is concluded," High Counselor Nexus announced reluctantly. "Princess Kira has proven her strength and purity. She is free to choose her own path." Princess Kira walked over to where Jake stood. Her silver skin was bright with triumph, and her violet eyes sparkled with joy. "I choose to remain with Jake." Morrison and the human diplomatic corps, she declared loudly enough for everyone to hear. The Galactic Council representatives looked at each other with expressions ranging from amazement to concern. The human engineer and alien princess, who had seemed like a joke, just months ago had just humiliated one of the galaxy's most feared warriors. How did they do that? Council member Vex asked his aide. I do not know, the aide replied. But I think we need to reconsider our assessment of human capabilities. As Jake and Princess Kira left the Grand Chamber together, the Zilani nobles watched them go with new respect and fear. They had witnessed something unprecedented, a partnership that made both individuals far more powerful than they could ever be alone. High Counselor Nexus stared at General Thane, who was still kneeling on the chamber floor, broken and defeated. For the first time in centuries, the Zilani Empire had been forced to acknowledge that their way might not be the only way. And that realization terrified them more than any enemy army ever could. Image description for Leonardo AI. A massive alien. Throne room with walls of liquid starlight and floating chairs filled with tall, silver-skinned Zilani nobles. In the center, a graceful alien princess in white robes faces a massive, intimidating warrior with black and silver skin crackling with psychic energy. A human engineer in a tactical suit stands nearby holding a glowing scanner, calling out tactical information. Streams of silver and blue psychic energy clash in the air between the combatants while diverse alien council members watch from elevated viewing platforms, their expressions shifting from amusement to shock. 6 months after the trial on Zelthara, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the starship Harmony and watched a sight that still amazed him. The ship's crew included humans, Zilani, Vorthan, Keplerians, and even a few reformed Vrak who had learned. To control their hunger for psychic energy, the Harmony was not like other ships in the galaxy. Instead of having a single species crew with rigid military hierarchy, it operated on what Jake called cooperative efficiency. Everyone contributed their natural abilities while working together toward common goals. Jake, we're receiving another request from the Galactic Council, Princess Kira said as she walked onto the bridge. She now wore a uniform that combined human and Zilani design elements, practical but elegant, with silver threads that matched her skin. Her official title was Co-Commander, but most of the crew just called her Kira. What do they want this time? Jake asked. Kira activated the main display screen. The image of Council Member Vex appeared, but he looked very different from the arrogant alien who had mocked Jake months earlier. Now he seemed nervous and respectful. Commander Morrison, Co-Commander Kira, Vex began formally. The Galactic Council has another situation that requires your unique approach. Jake and Kira exchanged glances. In the past 6 months, they had solved 12 impossible diplomatic crises. Each success had made them more famous throughout the galaxy and more requested by species who had given up hope of peaceful solutions. What's the problem, Council Member Vex? Jake asked. The Andromedans have refused all contact with galactic civilization for 3 centuries, Vex explained. They consider all other species inferior and primitive. However, they have recently begun expanding into systems claimed by the Centauri Alliance. War seems inevitable unless someone can establish diplomatic contact. Why do you think we can? Help? Kira asked, though she probably already knew the answer. Vex looked embarrassed. Because you have succeeded where traditional diplomacy has failed. The Andromedans have agreed to meet with your ship, and only your ship. Apparently they have heard stories about your methods and are curious. After Vex's image disappeared, Jake looked around the bridge at his diverse crew. Lieutenant Tom Kelly, his human communications officer, was working alongside engineer Zara, a young Zilani who had been exiled from her homeworld for having weak psychic abilities. At the navigation station, Commander Vex, not the council member, but a former Vrak warrior who had taken the name after learning to live without feeding on others, plotted courses with Dr. Nina Ross, a human xenobiologist. What do you think? Jake asked the crew. The Andromedans are known for their advanced technology and complete isolation, Dr. Ross said. No one has successfully communicated with them in living memory. They sound lonely, said Zara quietly. Her weak psychic abilities had turned out to be incredibly sensitive, allowing her to feel emotions across vast distances. I can sense something from their space. Not hostility, but dotness. Jake nodded. Set course for the Andromedan border. Let's see what they want to tell us. The journey to Andromedan space took 2 weeks. During that time, more stories reached them about their growing reputation. Jake had been promoted to full commander by Earth's diplomatic corps, while Princess Kira had been formally recognized as an independent royal with her own authority to make treaties, but more importantly, they had become a symbol of something new in the galaxy. Other species were starting to copy their methods, forming mixed crews, valuing cooperation over dominance, and looking for potential in individuals that their societies had rejected. When they reached the Andromedan border, they found a single ship waiting for them. It was unlike anything Jake had ever seen, crystalline structures that seemed to grow rather than be built, pulsing with soft light that hurt to look at directly. "We are the Andromedans," came a voice that spoke directly into their minds without using any communication device. "We have watched your progress with interest." "We're honored to meet you," Jake replied, not sure if they could hear him. "We hear all thoughts in this space," the voice confirmed. "You wonder why we have remained isolated. The answer is simple. We evolved beyond the need for a physical existence millennia ago. We became beings of pure energy and thought." On the bridge's main screen, shapes of light appeared, vaguely humanoid but constantly shifting and changing. "We withdrew from galactic society because we believed physical species could never understand us. We thought we had nothing in common with beings trapped in matter." Princess Kira stepped forward. "But something changed your mind." "You did," the Andromedan said. "We have observed your partnership. A being of matter working with a being of psychic energy. Your human's mind providing structure while your princess's abilities provide power. You have shown us that physical and energy beings can work together as equals." Jake began to understand. "You're not hostile to the Centauri Alliance. You're trying to make contact." "Correct. We wish to establish colonies in physical space again, but we do not know how to communicate with matter-based species. Our expansion has been clumsy because we do not understand how to coexist." Over the next week, Jake and Kira helped establish the first formal contact between the Andromedans and galactic civilization in 3 centuries. The process required all their skills, Jake's practical problem-solving to create communication interfaces, and Kira's psychic abilities to bridge the gap between physical and energy-based consciousness. The agreement they reached became known as the Harmony Accords, named after their ship. The Andromedans would share their advanced energy technologies in exchange for help establishing peaceful coexistence protocols with physical species. When they returned to Council space, they found something unprecedented waiting for them. Representatives from over 50 species had gathered to formally establish what they called the Cooperative Alliance, a new form of galactic organization based on the principles Jake and Kira had demonstrated. "You have changed everything, Council," Member Vex told them at the ceremony. 6 months ago, we laughed at the idea of a human inheriting an unwanted princess. Today, that princess and that human have created a new model for galactic civilization. Jake looked around the great assembly hall at hundreds of alien species who had once seemed impossibly different from each other. Now they work together, sharing knowledge and abilities while respecting each other's unique strengths. "We didn't change anything," Jake said into the podium microphone. "We just stopped seeing differences as problems and started seeing them as opportunities." Princess Kira joined him at the podium. "Every individual in the galaxy has value, regardless of whether their society recognizes it. Sometimes the greatest treasures are found in what others throw away." Later, as they stood together on the observation deck of the Harmony, watching ships from dozens of species working together in the space around them, Kira asked Jake a question that had been on her mind for months. "Do you ever regret accepting the blood debt? Your life would have been much simpler if you had refused." Jake smiled and looked at his partner, friend, and co-commander. Her silver skin gleamed in the starlight, and her violet eyes held contentment he had never seen in those early days. Around them, their mixed crew worked in harmony, each contributing their unique abilities to their shared mission. Simple was overrated, Jake said. Besides, I got the best partner in the galaxy out of the deal. Princess Kira laughed, a sound like silver bells in the wind. The galaxy's unwanted daughter and a maintenance engineer. Who would have thought? Everyone eventually, Jake replied. They just needed time to figure it out. Image description for Leonardo AI. A diverse bridge of a futuristic starship with crew members from multiple alien species working together at various stations. A human commander in a blue uniform stands beside a tall alien princess with flowing silver skin and violet eyes, both looking out through a large viewport at space filled with ships from many different civilizations. The scene shows crystalline Andromedan vessels, sleek Zalani ships, and various other alien craft working in harmony. Soft lighting creates a peaceful, hopeful atmosphere emphasizing unity and cooperation between different species.